Hey everybody, it's Charlie. This is going to be my non-spoilery Incredibles 2 review. I'll be sure to rank this on my list of Pixar sequels because I think it does work really well as a Pixar sequel. But while they were on the press tour, they did make a lot of jokes about how kids today have absolutely no familiarity with the brand. Like it was 14 years ago, so most of the little kids that went to see the first movie are actually graduating high school and college right now. Like that's how long it's been. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's a bunch of big movie stuff happening this summer. But all in all, like I said, great Pixar sequel. Not quite as good as the first film in my imagination, but that was one of the best Pixar films of all time. And it's still one of my favorite superhero movies in general, animated or live action. It skewered the superhero genre a long time before Deadpool ever came to the scene. No capes. Speaking of which, Edna and Jack, probably the best pairing from this film. So part of the fun of the Incredibles film is seeing the family fight together. Make as many Fantastic Four jokes as you want, probably one of the best Fantastic Four movies, even though it's not called Fantastic Four. I don't consider it a big knock to say that the plot is very familiar. It follows the same paradigm as the first film. All the trailers have spelled that out, except this time it's Mr. Incredible that has to stay home with the kids. The biggest criticisms that I had about it were the ending in general. Like, it didn't ruin the film, but the ending was a little bit silly in the fact that there wasn't as much of the family together as I expected. Like, I don't consider it a spoiler to say that, yeah, there's a lot of pairings that happen in the film. Part of the fun of the film is seeing how they use their powers together. But when you see them on screen, like they kind of build this as a family movie, what you actually get from that in the film isn't quite what they were selling. So I wouldn't call the trailers misleading in that sense. It's just that whatever the final cut of the movie ended up being had them apart more than they are together working as a team. Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter were great as always. Bob Odenkirk was a lot of fun. And if you're a big Breaking Bad Better Call Saul fan, Jonathan Banks is also voicing a character in the film too. Just to avoid spoilers, I don't want to talk too much about Catherine Keener's character, but she was interesting for a little bit of the film. Like I said though, the ending didn't work quite as well for me, but it didn't ruin the film. Mostly the film is actually really good. Like I said, very good Pixar sequel. Violet and Dash were fun. You get a little bit more of their life outside of the house. Like they do try to build the movie out a little bit. So it's not just Mr. Incredible and Miss Incredible out on her adventures. But probably the most fun new part of the film was Jack and him showing off all of his powers and them just trying to deal with that. There was a bit more Samuel L. Jackson. I think that they try to capitalize on how big he's gotten with the Marvel movies. So like, okay, we'll put a bunch of Frozone in there. But he was one of the people that joked that all the little kids that love him from Marvel stuff and know him as Nick Fury weren't even born when the first movie came out. So barely anyone knows him on the street as Frozone. It's mostly little kids' parents. One of the other really big highlights of the film was Michael Giacchino'S score. He always makes amazing music for Pixar films, really any films in general. He's just really good at what he does. But he does find a way of bringing the music from the first movie back because it was so iconic and then weaving in some new stuff. So obviously the real reason to go see this movie is just to watch all the characters use their powers together. Because even though chronologically in their lives not a whole lot of time has passed since the first movie, they have done a much better job of learning to use their abilities. So you don't waste a lot of time with Dash and Violet learning how to sort of pump themselves up so they can use their abilities to their full efforts. Like, oh my god, I can do this. They're already fully aware of what they're capable of. Like all the new discovery is through the Jack character and just the crazy number of different abilities that he manifests. It's so weird watching this after everything that Marvel's done in the last 10 years, especially in Infinity War with the level of craziness on screen and superheroes working together, whereas the first Incredibles film was all about addressing the place of superheroes in the real world. Like, do they belong? Do we even need superheroes? Most of the bigger criticisms I've seen from other critics lay mostly on that idea, like the idea that it's trying to answer a question and like show you how superheroes are necessary when we've already answered that a long time ago, 10 times over. It's kind of a problem for the X-Men films too at this point because Marvel has made it so that everybody loves superheroes, but you go into an X-Men film and everybody hates mutants, wants to demonize them. Like in the world of the Incredibles, especially in the first film, people didn't like superheroes. In fact, there was that period in history when they were outlawed. So when I talk about the film sort of retreading plot from the first film, a lot of it has to do with addressing the place that superheroes hold in the world. But if you do find yourself wondering why they waited 14 years to make a sequel, if you remember way back to the first film, if you were around when that happened, Brad Bird was pretty adamant about not doing a sequel. Like, he wasn't a person that did a lot of sequel movies. But I think one of the things that happened is that he wanted to direct live action films too, and he's a great director. But I think within the Disney umbrella, he had a pretty big flop with Tomorrowland, so Disney probably told him, unless you do a couple sequels for us to movies that we know are going to be genuine hits, we're not going to let you do the really weird movies or the really big live action movies that you want to do. So I don't know that they would ever do a third movie to this, but they've done so many Toy Story movies, like they're doing Toy Story 4 right now too, which is also going through a whole bunch of reworks because there's a whole bunch of stuff happening behind the scenes with John Lasseter. But it just feels like in general, Disney is going to double down on sequels in the future because franchises are so much a bigger part of studios' business models than they were when the original movie came out. So whereas they didn't pressure him to make a sequel way back when the first one came out, I think now it's a very different story. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, as long as whatever they do next doesn't completely retread the same plot the way that this one kind of hits a lot of the familiar beats from the first film. Even with those few minor faults, it totally works as a big summer blockbuster. So like we have this happening this weekend, then next week is going to be Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom. I will do a non-spoilery review of that soon too. Both of them are really good summer big blockbuster films with just a couple minor complaints, but overall I felt like Incredibles 2 was probably a little bit stronger, but it just depends on what kind of movie you're looking for. Ranking this on my list of Pixar sequels, the list is really short because Pixar doesn't make a ton of sequels yet. I'm sure in the future that's going to change, but Toy Story 3 is still number one. Probably one of the best sequels to any movie in the history of movies, like just still an amazing movie in general. Incredibles 2 I would rank relatively close to Toy Story 2, but I still give the edge to Toy Story 2. So I would actually recommend that you check out some Pixar films this weekend if you're going to see Incredibles 2, especially rewatching the original film, which still holds up. It's still amazing. Once you do have a chance to see the movie, let me know what you think of it in the comments. Please no spoilers just because this is meant to be a non-spoilery video. Fun fact though, Samuel L. Jackson having a really strong summer of movies between Infinity War and this. Infinity War just crossed the $2 billion box office line. We'll see how long it takes it to roar past Force Awakens. But what'll probably happen is either later this week or early next week, I'll do my non-spoilery Jurassic World review. Click here for brand new Ant-Man and the Wasp footage, and click here for that Avengers 4 Kevin Feige teaser. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.